Hi, I'm Pastor Kurt, and this is your 5-minute Bible study. Today, we're going to be looking at Mark 16, 1 through 8. So this is when the women come to the tomb, they find it empty, they hear the message from the angel that Jesus is risen, and then in verse 8, we hear that they ran away from the tomb in terror and amazement and didn't say a word to anyone. This is where the Gospel of Mark ends. Now, yes, that is a strange way to end the Gospel. And if you look in your Bible, you might notice that there are more verses after verse 8. There might be a heading that says the shorter ending of Mark, and then another one that says the longer ending of Mark. In the earliest biblical manuscripts, 16:8 was where the Gospel of Mark originally ended. But people read that and they thought, now wait a minute. How could this be the end? If they didn't say a word to anybody, then how did we find out about it? Somebody had to tell the good news of the resurrection. So this is why the shorter ending and the longer ending got added on, because ending it at 16:8 just didn't make sense. But I want us to think about this ending section of Mark paired with how this gospel begins. If you think way back to the beginning of Mark, chapter 1, verse 1, that verse says that this is the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And one question is, okay, what is the beginning? Is it chapter 1, verse 1? Is it the first few verses? One theory says that the entire Gospel of Mark is the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, which means that having the ending at 16:8, leaving it kind of like with a ... or a to be continued, tells us that the story continues in our lives. Yes, the story does not end with the women running away in terror and amazement and not saying anything to anybody. We know that's not where it ends because even today, we're still talking about the resurrection. Somebody had to say something. But we also see that we are telling others about the resurrection too. The story is continuing in our life. Also, think about endings that you've seen in your life. Think about periods in your life that have come to an end that maybe you can remember, or it seems like a long time ago, or your life has just changed and you sort of remember what that used to be like, right? We go through times of change and death all the time. But one thing we need to remember is that God always brings resurrection. Even if the women hadn't said a word to anybody, Jesus would still be raised. Jesus' resurrection is not dependent on whether the women say anything or not. Jesus' resurrection is dependent upon his love for us, which is stronger than the grave. So in the midst of changes and death in our life, remember that God always brings resurrection life for us too. No matter how your life changes or how it seems like one thing ends or one chapter ends and another chapter begins, you know this experience. You know what it's like going through these times of transition in your life. But even in the midst of those times of transition and change and death, remember that Christ is still risen. The tomb is still empty. God always brings resurrection life, and the story continues in our lives today. So yes, 16:8 is a weird way to end the Gospel of Mark, and we can understand why the shorter ending and the longer ending were added on. But we also need to see our own lives as a continuation of the story. Even if the women ran away from the tomb and didn't say a word to anybody, today we can still tell people. We can still share that good news. We can still tell them that Christ is risen, that the tomb is empty, and that God continues to bring new life. There's your 5-minute Bible study for the day. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.